You have to kind of not accept those stereotypes in your own life, understand that age is just a number. And my number's not up yet.
Hello, welcome back. This is Andreea Parc at Alive.Again podcast, where attorneys and other professionals meet to discuss real life challenges and how our decisions shaped our journeys. Alexa won't join us today because she has some projects to work on, but our guest today is the fabulous Judy Katz, founder of Katz Creative Books and Media. She's a book collaborator, ghostwriter, publisher, marketer, and author. Along with obtaining literary agents and publishers for her authors, she helps promote their books to serve them as the ultimate reputation building tool. Judy has extensive experience, including PR director for Madison Square Garden, the New York March of Dimes, and director of special projects for the National MS Society. Thank you, Judy, so much for being here with us today. Such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate so much being given this opportunity because the lens that I see life with is through a book. I've discovered that for those who want to build their businesses or leave a legacy of their life story, a book is no longer a good to have, it's a got to have.
Let me start with the most important piece of information in this conversation.
Sure.
You are 85 years old.
I am.
You had found this passion about 20 years ago, right?
Yes.
And tell us a little bit about the meaning that this work has in your life, in this portion of your life.
Sure. I decided to be a writer when I was 11 years old, and I read stories by Guy de Maupassant, and I said, in English, not in French, but I said, if somebody can transport me and others with words to a little village outside of Paris and make you feel like you're there, that's what I want to do with my life. And writing was always very important. But when I built my PR firm, it was very successful and I had a lot of employees. But after a while, I felt like I was becoming everybody's Jewish mother. Everybody had a drama all the time, and I was no longer writing. And it wasn't the creative writing that I loved. And I would go home exhausted. I remember it was one day in August, just before my 65th birthday. And my then 3 bedroom, 3 bath, terrace, beautiful co op, 2,000 square feet is sitting empty. And I'm coming home exhausted, commuting. And I said to myself, what can I do that would involve me to use my mission, passion, and purpose for writing and not have to have a whole team around me? And I thought of ghostwriting. It was not as common as it is today. So I went to one of my big PR clients and I said, you need a book. And she said, I do. Why? I said, because it's the ultimate marketing tool. And she will tell you that she brought in millions of dollars, not from selling a lot of books, but from, we wrote a cover letter, powerful cover letter, sent it out to the CEOs of the companies that she worked with, which happened to be in the pharmaceutical and financial arenas. And the phone never stopped ringing. And I've done that for a few of my clients who will tell you that this is the tool to make you literally an authority in your field. And I, of course, I also do memoirs and other kinds of books, but the Holocaust memoir that I did was really close to my heart. And Sam, it's called Angel of the Ghetto. And Sam Solas came here with $10 in his pocket after a horrendous life as a young man lost his whole family, the whole story. And he built $100 million business in New York, which is a generational business to this day. And that became a documentary. So I'm blessed to be able to help people tell their stories and to
Yeah.
still be in demand at 85.
That's wonderful. You write a column called
Celebrating.
Celebrate 80. What is something that you enjoy now that you didn't at 40 or 50?
You know, I write these stories because, frankly, Andrea, I'm trying to change the conversation about aging. If you believe what you see, the stereotype of an 85-year-old in the movies or some streaming video, even some ads, I should be sitting in a rocking chair or a wheelchair, having lost most of my marbles, if not all of them. And I should be in a nursing home or a care facility. And this is not my reality. And it's not the reality of so many, not just famous people that we all know who are pushing 100, but rank and file doctors, lawyers, entrepreneurs, writers, all kinds of people who are very much in the game, playing full out in their 80s, as I am, and their 90s,
90s.
and well into their 90s. I have a friend who does cabaret in her 90s. I have a woman who's well into her 90s, and she's a stand up comedian. There's all kinds of stories. So I really think you have to kind of not accept those stereotypes and in your own life understand that age is just a number and my number's not up yet.
What do you think that is the mindset necessary for that?
I think you have to really love what you're doing. Some people have a job that they kind of fell into, they don't really love it, they can't wait to retire, then they retire, then they're bored. I have no hobbies. My work is my hobby. What am I going to do? I have a 75-inch TV at home. Am I going to sit and watch Netflix all day? What am I going to do? I've traveled all over the world. I don't want to do that anymore. My work is my passion, helping people tell the right story in the right way to the right audiences. And I think if you love what you're doing or you're willing to take a chance on yourself, that's another conversation. But I encourage the younger people who I call amoebas. I tell them, your little amoeba eyes are just focusing on the land. You haven't even got out of the sea yet. You have your whole life ahead of you. And also baby boomers, who are the biggest growing population in this country, don't feel like you're aging out. Feel like maybe there's another road to take.
Yeah,
And that's what I did at 65.
definitely.
And it wasn't that easy because now you have to sell yourself in a different way than you sell PR or promotion. You have to sell yourself, you know?
Yeah.
But if you don't believe in yourself by the time you're up there, when are you going to?
Yeah, exactly. I love the idea that you created this Bookini. It's a short and powerful strategic book. Who do you think would qualify for that? And give us a little bit of description of what that means to you.
No, yeah, I trademarked the term Bookini, Bookini, a play on bikini, the bathing suit, because sometimes people want a very focused book on some aspect of their law practice or their dental practice or their consultancy, some one thing. And it doesn't have to be more than 100 pages. It could be 60 well written pages. Mark Twain famously wrote to a friend, he said, if I had more time, I would have sent you a shorter letter. Somebody made millions coming up with GE brings good things to light. So, yeah, I trademarked Bookini, and it's also much less expensive and faster to get out than the 250 or 300 page books. that I do, which take a year and cost a lot more money
Yeah.
because they're a lot more work. So
And who
that's
would qualify for that?
consultant who has one aspect of their, for example, a good friend of mine wrote a book called Replacement Children. So maybe there would be a book on what it means to be a replacement child. A dentist might want to do a book on sleep apnea and how dentists can help you with that. It just depends on what your profession is. So it's really more a book for a professional or consultant or CEO of a company to put out a focused story line in a short 60 to 100-page book.
You helped about 50 people to write their
60.
books.
No, I've done well over 60 books so far.
What story does continue to amaze you?
I love when people tell the truth about their upbringing and the things that they've gone through. And sometimes they're horrific, horrific experiences, abuse, poverty, trauma, accidents. And I say to them, I'm really sorry that you had to experience that, but it's good for the book. And they always laugh, you know. And I love self-made people who have relatable stories or inspirational stories that they came from very little. They're not legacy children. They are hardworking, determined people. And I love to ferret out what that is. Who were their mentors? How did they become the successful, dynamic leadership type person they are today? So that people can look at it and think, oh, if that person coming from that, which is similar to what I came from, or is so far from what I came from, but if they could come from here to there, I can do it. So I find those stories very exciting and inspirational.
What do you think that is one character trait that separates people who succeed and others that don't?
I would say persistence, commitment, actually doing something. I gave a talk not long ago to a large group of people, and I said to them, there are 4 categories of people sitting in front of me, and I'm going to tell you who you are and see if one of these resonates with you. And this is all in relation to a book. So I said, the first are people who want to write a book. People tell them, oh, you should write a book. You got a great story. And they never do anything. They just don't do anything. They don't know how to start. They don't think they're writers. And that story never gets told. A second category is somebody who starts writing a book. Maybe you do an outline. Maybe you write 1 or 2 chapters. And then it kind of fizzles out. They're like, well, I don't know what I should do with it. I don't know if it's any good. Who do I show? Maybe they won't like it. And you put it in a drawer. So that's it. You started, and that's good, but you didn't finish. The third category are people who finish an entire manuscript. And they finish it, and then they don't know what to do. Maybe they show it to some people, friends, to ask them what they think. And I always tell them, if you're going to go for a beta group, do not choose anybody you sleep with, because they're not going to tell you the truth. Has a stake in making nice. But yeah, I mean, you could definitely show it to some people and see what they think. But you're better off hiring somebody like me, doesn't have to be me, but somebody like me who's a professional, really knows the industry, publishing, books, audiences, readerships, and see what they think and see, what they advise you with. But you in category 3 have an entire manuscript and you don't know what to do with it. I'm going to tell all of you what to do with each of these situations. And the last situation, you finished a book, you published it. You may have gotten an agent and a traditional publisher. You may have self-published, but your book is on Amazon. And guess what? No one's buying it. Oh, a couple of hundred copies from people who know you and love you. That's it. And now you're stuck. I put 2 years, 3 years, my life, a lot of money and time and effort into this book, and it's not moving. What do I do? And those are the situations that I address. We don't have time now, but I will make an offer to all of your audience. If anybody wants a free half an hour with me on the phone, you tell me the book that you think you should write, and I'll tell you the book you should write. Because very often people are too close to their story and they don't know what book they should write. And when I hear it, I have
Yeah.
the ability to tell them what their life lessons are and who I think their audiences are. The other thing that I do say to people right off the bat, Andreea, is what do you want the book to do for you? Because I tell people I'm not responsible for how many copies of your book sell. That is the universe at work. That is marketing to some extent. That is good luck and a lot of other factors. But if you have another purpose, if you want to tell your story to the ages, your children's children for a memoir, or you want to build your business, or maybe you want to get a TEDx talk with it. Maybe you want them to call you, as somebody just did for one of my clients. This is Dubai. We need you to come here and we'll pay everything. I mean, you want a global reputation. A book can do all of those things for you, but you have to know that it's not just about how many copies you're going to sell. So I'm very
Yeah.
frank with people.
Yeah.
Business. It's a business. And then the other thing is marketing. You
I
have
think that's, yeah, very important.
very important.
What do you believe the difference between traditional publishing and self publishing is? Because you're calling the entrepreneurial publishing.
Right.
And
Which is
some New York Times best-selling authors now these days are
the
choosing the
self
self. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. First of all, publishing is a business. So the publishers have gotten even choosier. There are 2 million books published, entrepreneurial and through traditional publishers of all kinds, the big five, as well as small independent ones. But they've gotten very choosy and they're looking for people who have big social media numbers. They're looking for somebody who's in the news, So the average person with a good story doesn't really have a very strong path to traditional publishing. I help a lot of people get an agent and get a publisher, but we have to make sure that the angle they're coming at is something unique, that it hasn't been done a million times, and stuff like that. Self-publishing is extremely easy and inexpensive. And if you're doing a memoir, you're better off self-publishing and putting it out there with your own marketing. And there have been some self-published books that caught the attention of publishers. It could happen. There have been some self-published books that became big movies. That's another thing I try to do with some of my books is get it made into a movie. Easier said than done, but some of them. I recently co-wrote an incredible book about a dog named Galaxy, and that book I'm hoping to have made into a movie. It comes out in February. I love dogs. I'm a dog crazy person. I think there's that once you start a book, you should finish it.
Yeah.
You should either make it into a small business book or into a large business book or a large memoir or a large inspirational book. I've done health books with doctors, science books, but always written for the layperson, always written in a way that's, for the broader audience. I don't write academic things with footnotes and things like that for the popular press.
I met you through my publisher, the Three Tomatoes. and you helped me. You suggested that I should have a TEDx talk, and you helped me a little bit on that, but I had since then changed it several times, and I will next year ask you to help me again with a new idea. But what do you think for somebody that wants to get out there? Is it a book more important or a TEDx talk?
Both. I mean, first of all, to get a TEDx talk, you should really have a book. Most people who do a TEDx talk. Now, I have a client who did 4 TED Talks, not X, TED, but the first one he did was 3 minutes long. 3 minutes long. It's called Tying Your Shoelaces. The other one was 4 minutes long, and it was called Why is X the Unknown? And, you can do a 15-minute talk, a 20-minute talk, a 5-minute talk. You need to have an unusual topic. Like I've been thinking about doing one myself. And I thought, well, what could I come up with? And then I thought about the age spots that I have on my face, my chest, my arms that seem to come out of nowhere when you get older. And I remember buying every kind of cream or medicine or this, whatever. Every one of them promises, oh, you can get rid of those things. And I realized that none of them work. It's all a fantasy. And I have to accept my age spots. And I call them wisdom spots. And I'm happy it's popping up. My wisdom is showing itself to the world. So I came up with 5 minutes that are very funny. And, I'll probably wind up doing it. But TED is by invitation. TEDx, there are groups in New York, there are groups in New Jersey, Connecticut, everywhere, Florida. So what you do is you just go online to TED.com and you fill out the form and you tell them a good soundbite. This is what I want to talk about. This is why I'm qualified to do it. You fill out the form and then they get back to you. It's really very simple applying. What's not so simple is coming up with an unusual. No one so far has talked about that topic, but a lot of topics. I have a client who just wrote a book about caregiving. It's called A Widow's Fire. Oh my God, it's a fabulous book. And
Yeah, we had Diane as a guest. Yes.
So I was looking for a TEDx topic for her, and I haven't found one yet because a lot of people have talked about a widow's fire or having passionate sex in your 80s. I thought it would be more unique than it is. So we have to figure out something that's a little bit off the beaten path.
Yeah.
One could be the disapproval of your adult children. Should you care what they think? And, there's any different ways to do that. But I think having a TEDx talk is extremely valuable. But if you don't have a book, what are you selling? You always should think about how you can monetize whatever
Right.
it is doing. Why not?
Everything it's a business, exactly.
Nothing wrong with doing well while doing good.
That's a great outlook. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's taken me many years.
Wisdom.
If you're lucky and you pay attention to what's happening around you, you start seeing bigger pictures, the macro, not the micro.
And that's perspective is the most important thing in life. How do you see things?
Well, that's why people should work with a professional to help them decide. I do a 2-hour developmental session with people, and it's one of the best things to get started with because after they tell me their life story, I tell them what book they should write, and usually I'm right. If they don't listen, they don't write a book.
Yeah. No, that's really important. And what you're saying is very true because I worked on my TEDx talk and I remember sending it to you in text. And then you replied, why don't you record it so I can hear you present it and then I can perceive it differently? And I've done that. And you came back with some question points that I've never thought of it. And I've again tried to reframe it, and somehow it didn't resonate in any way.
Yeah, no, I understand, but you're getting closer. And because you have an extraordinary story, I'm sure everybody knows, but it's just so inspirational and so dramatic. It does, by the way, it should become a movie, no question about it. And there are these book to movie agents that one can go to, and some of them get paid, some of them don't. Some of them, if they really fall in love with your story, will, ask you to let them try, like a real estate agent, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or a book agent. Those people get paid when they get you a publisher or they get you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but definitely you have that experience of life and of the world that when you hear a story or talk to a person, you immediately get to the root of that person's story and what they need to put out in the world.
Well, we're all too close to our own stories sometimes to understand fully what we should be telling or who can benefit, who our audience is. I've had people say to me after they tell me their story, I say, "Who's your audience?" And they go, "Everybody." Oh, no, 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 no. It's not everybody.
Yeah.
Then you're watering it down.
It's,
You really
yeah.
have to look at. So, yeah, I mean, it's my mission, passion, and purpose to listen. And I do it with something called level 5 listening. So, level 1 listening is someone's talking to you and you can't wait for them to shut up so you can talk and show how smart you are. That is like interrupted. Oh, you know so and so, I know so and so. You did that, I did that. That. You're not going to, there's no connection. Go down a few levels of degree or really perform better. It's level 5 listening. This is where you listen with your whole heart. You hear what people are saying, but also what they're not saying, what they want to say, and you get into their soul. That's level 5 listening, and that's what I've taught myself to do over 60 plus books.
Yeah, I know. And that's very interesting because I went to law school and I went to masters in law programs and all the education. And then I got to the coaching school. And that's where I've learned how to listen.
Listen. Yes.
And that's the level 5 listening that I've learned later in life in coaching school, how to listen to people. And that's very important, yeah.
Because a lot of people think they are good listeners and they're not. They're rehearsing what they're going to say.
Yeah,
because
true.
they just want it.
Yeah.
I'm at the point where I trust my own instincts. And fortunately, I'm not desperate for business. You have to be at a place where you can turn around and say no.
No. Yep.
You have to be able to have an indifference point. No. People do tell me I'm expensive, and I think I'm very fair with my prices. And for some people, it's a lot. And I never argue with them, but I simply say to them, a Timex tells time and a Rolex tells time. I'm the Rolex of ghostwriters. If you want a Timex ghostwriter, I'll help you find one. And then if I do, they come back to me because they didn't get what they need. So to a certain extent, you get what you pay for.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
There's nothing wrong with writing the first batch yourself. If you're a writer, everything takes a village. Nobody does anything in a vacuum alone. So if you want to write a book and you have a good story, it doesn't take away from you as an author. if you tell your story to a ghostwriter like myself, and then I can shape it into a book. Because as a writer, I know how to pull people in from the first page. And it's always show, not tell. It's almost like fiction. You've got to grab them with the story so they want to turn the page. What happens next? It's got to be compelling as
Yeah.
your and that going to a professional, they know the pacing, the momentum, what comes next.
Yeah.
That's what a lot of the other thing I want to say is a lot of people hesitate to write a book because they think it's going to take, even to work with a ghostwriter, that it's going to take too much time. I ask my people to give me a minimum of 1 hour a week. That's it. I take them, and then I take them 8 or 10 times, talk to any other people they want me to talk to, and then I do a table of contents, and that is our roadmap. It has a summary of what's in every chapter. And it's organic, it can change, it can move around, but you now have a roadmap for the whole book. And that's the first 2 months that I work with people. And then after that, I get another payment, they get 3 chapters. Another payment, they get 3 chapters. So you're always getting something for your money.
Yeah. And there is something that you call the book report
Yes.
for someone that it's almost there. How do you do that?
Okay. So the book reports are an evaluation of your book. And I charge $3,500 for that, which sounds like a lot, but it is your scheme on how to go forward. What I do is I read it not flippantly. I read it knowing what other books are anything like it, seeing the style of your writing, seeing how you portray things. And I tell you exactly what works, what does not work, and how to fix it. And people say it's game changing. And then if you can make the changes, or you maybe hire me or some other editor, very often they ask me to make the changes for another fee, but I will do that. And then I'll get you an agent as part of that. I'll get you an agent if you've done that. But very often people love the suggestions, but they can't do it. So they just really have to have some kind of a budget to get the help to make the changes that are going to make the book publishable, especially if you want to get an agent.
Yeah.
I also do something called book proposal. So the book proposal, which is described on my website, catscreativebooksandmedia.com, the book proposal is about 45, 55 pages. And it is like a book business plan. This is what you give the agent to take out to publishers. And this is what publishers look at, even perhaps before your whole book is written. So halfway through, I have a book proposal written. It starts with a synopsis of the whole story. What's this story about? An overview. About the author. Why is this person uniquely qualified to tell this story? Well, obviously, if it's your life story, And then marketing. How are you going to market? How are you going to help get this book out there? Very important. Comparables. What are the books in the last several years have been anything like this book? Who published it? And how is yours the same or different? So that is, write the comparable section, finding other books like it. And like for my dog book, there were so many wonderful comparables. And the publisher that I got also published a book called From Baghdad with Love about a dog, a soldier, and it became not only a New York Times bestseller, it also became a movie. So, yeah, we do that. And then the comparables, the marketing, and who the audience is part of the marketing. And then a table of contents with, again, a summary of what's in each chapter and a sample chapter. One chapter, you could put 2 if you want. Depends on what you have that you feel confident about. But you have at least one written chapter to show them the style. And that's something I've done for a number of projects.
you helped so many people write books, and you wrote your own
I did.
from 18 to 84 and counting.
Here's the book.
One woman's blueprint for a joyous third act. Tell
So,
us more about that.
yeah, so I had written 29 essays that were online and people were loving them. There were 29 blogs. And they talked about how I ran away from home at 18, wound up at UC Berkeley, how I dated Cary Grant for a year, the actor, how I became the youngest PR director at Madison Square Garden, how I became a ghostwriter, personal things about my love of dogs, personal things about my family, etc. And a friend of mine told me about this woman, Rika, who designed books, cover, back cover, interior design for under $200. And I've been paying much more. I said, well, let me just test it. So I took my 29 blogs with all those stories and gave it to her, and it became this book. This is me the day I met Cary Grant. This is me now. And people are loving it. I'm not trying to make this any kind. I use it as a marketing tool. You want me to talk? Here's my book. Have a copy. And yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with it. And it's
Yeah.
a marketing tool.
So, what took you so long?
I love telling other people's stories. I don't feel like my story is that dramatic or unique. It's got some good features, and people love some of the stories in there. But I'd rather market somebody else's. So the only reason I did it was to test out Rika, and she came like a champ. And I brought her a lot of people since then,
Business, yeah.
and they're all thrilled. So it's not that it took me so long. I wasn't going to do it, and now I'm glad that I did. And I think having a book has, encouraged people to have me on. I don't know if I would have been able to get on some of these things if I didn't have a book.
That's wonderful. What is one piece of advice that you would give someone that was probably thinking of writing a book?
Do it. Just do it. You know, I've taken on a lot of things that I didn't know if I could do. I never say no. I just say sure, and then I do it. And sometimes I bring in one of the amoebas to help me, and sometimes I bring in one of the boomers to help me. I have some remarkable, talented people, and I never hide them. I tell my client, I have this young man. He's in Hollywood. He's written screenplays. He's written bestsellers. He's going to help me a little bit with your book. I want you to talk to him a little bit. It doesn't cost you anything extra because they're already paying me a lot. And I have that kind of help. People today, they feel like either they're burned out or they feel like they're aging out. So think about the life lessons you have to offer. There are people who want to hear that, and they'll pay you to hear that. You just have to package it in the right way. Anybody who is in that situation, come talk to me, because I will tell you how to set yourself up as a consultant. I love to market. To me, it's like a home run when you meet somebody at a networking event or a party or something, and they ask you, so what do you do? And I tell them. And then I say, tell me your story. I'll tell you what books you write. Very often they become a client. So you can't be shy about it.
Yeah.
Can't be shy.
Everybody has a story.
Everybody does. But some stories are similar, too similar to other stories. So what we have to do with those, I turn people away. Why would I turn somebody away if they're willing to pay me? Well, sometimes it's because the story they want to tell is not going to go anywhere. And other times it's because they're delusional about how that their book is going to be a New York Times bestseller. First of all, New York Times bestseller doesn't necessarily mean you sell a lot of copies. Shock of shocks. But it's how many books sold that week in relation to your book. The next week, it could be, you could always become an Amazon online bestseller by having all your friends and customers in your business or people buy the book on Amazon that particular day. And even if it's in one of the top 10 in that category in that day, and only for a short period of time, you are a bestseller there. And there are contests, there are all kinds of ways to be a bestseller. But the best thing to do is to understand that you are going to have to promote your book yourself. Now, I don't mean that you don't hire a publicist, but you're going to have to get out there. I've already lined up my Galaxy book is, not even out yet. And I already have a wonderful publicist, of course, that I'm working with from the publishers, but mostly you do it yourself, meaning you have to hire your own publicist. I am a publicist, so I can do it. But we already have requests for interviews, so you kind of have to start doing that even before the book, especially with the long lead magazines, which could take 3 months. And then there's a wonderful online resource that I'll tell everybody about because I love it. It's called Quoted, QWOTED.com. And you can go there and either be somebody looking for guests like you could and say the kind of guests that you want and people will contact you, or you could be the guest. And I put myself out there as somebody, who would like to be interviewed. And I had 3 big interviews so far, and now Business Insider wants to do a profile on me.
Wow.
For free. It's free, people. So, get yourself out there. Come on. What are you waiting for?
Yeah, definitely. Wow, that's amazing. Thank you. I've never heard about that.
That would be good for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm moving. I'm moving from 2,000 square feet, which I sold 3 years ago. I moved into a rental, which I lived in for 3 years. And then I felt insulted when they raised my rent to $7,000 a month, which I could afford, but I didn't want to. Because who wants to pay $1,000 for 850 maybe square feet? They had a pool in the building. I love the pool. Okay, but not worth $7,000 a month. That is added times 12. Hello. So I had bought my daughter a 615 square foot studio apartment 22 years ago, and she's lived there very happily, made it into a little tiny 1-bedroom. It's got a huge terrace on a high floor. So I said, you know what, Heather, I'm going to buy you a spacious 1-bedroom in your building in Lincoln Towers, and I'm moving into your apartment. Mom, that's going to be too small for you. No, it's going to be a dollhouse. It's going to be a hotel room. I'm very excited to pare down because at this stage of the game, I don't want possessions. I want experiences. I don't want a lot of stuff, stuff. I found out with my 2 moves in the last 3 years, nobody wants your stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I read your post. I believe you posted on one of the social medias and I read it and I loved it. Yeah, it's so true.
It's true. There's some fun things that I wrote, which you can find on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. And now that we're at the end, it's that one question that I ask every guest, and that is, aside from your work, what is one thing that makes you feel alive again?
My son, Daryl, just moved to be closer from Saratoga Springs to Yonkers, and he's looking for a permanent. And so we spend more time together. I live in my daughter's building, although I had a promise that I wouldn't just show up and knock on the door. I would make an appointment. Okay, I understand. But I love that. And I love my little chihuahua and all the dog people that I know. I'm just having a lot of fun. Nothing earth shattering. I saw a show off Broadway called The Maze Magic Show. I took my kids with me. It was just wonderful. I love dining out in New York. Yeah, yeah. New York is the greatest. My brother lives in Arlington, Texas, and he thinks I should move there. And here's what I say, but not to him, to me. Shoot me in the head. Kill me now. Everything is, you're in a car all the time. If you want to go to the supermarket, you drive back and forth, the restaurant, and here, and this, and that. Everything is drive, 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 drive. No, I want to walk. New York is a walking town.
It is.
Anything you want, right? Anything you want, it's right there. Oh my God. So anyway, I'm not a Texan. I'm a New Yorker.
Yeah, I know. New York is wonderful. I'm here in Sunnyside Gardens in Queens. And I have everything, yeah, walking distance. Few blocks here and there, you have everything.
Absolutely. Absolutely. New York. New York. I don't know about
And
Staten
parks and
against Staten Island, but I don't want to go on that bridge. But yeah, Queens is great.
yeah. That's
Yeah.
wonderful, Judy. Thank you so much for your time and wisdom.
Thank you for asking great questions and for giving me this opportunity. And again, if anybody would like a free consultation about any aspect of the book you want to write, the book you started to write, but you put it in a drawer, or the book that you wrote and it's not selling, talk to me.
Yes. And where can people find you?
So my email is jkatz, K-A-T-Z, obviously, jkatzcreative@gmail. jkatzcreative@gmail.com. Email me and we'll figure it out.
Perfect. And I will also include your website into the description of the video for people to read more about you.
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you. Our listeners, thank you very much for listening. For more conversations and more guests, please subscribe and follow us. Thank you. Bye-bye.